students, welcome to day 34 of 99% in 99 days series. So today we are going to do a revision of the two chapters that we completed in this week. So in chemistry we have done metals and non-metals, and in biology we have done control and coordination. So first I'll be revising metals and non-metals, and after that your bio ma'am will be revising the chapter control and coordination. Okay, so let's get started quickly for this. So if you remember what is a metal and a non-metal, the difference between them. So metal has the tendency to donate electrons, non-metal has the tendency to accept electrons, right? Fine. Next you have they can conduct electricity, these cannot conduct electricity. Then you have they are electropositive, these are electronegative. Then in the valence shell of metals you can find 1, 2 or 3 electrons, but in the non-metal valence you can find 5, 6 or 7 electrons. Okay. Next, coming to the physical properties. So conduction. So metals are good conductors of electricity, but non-metals aren't, but there is an exception here. Graphite is a very good conductor of electricity even though it is a non-metal. Next, coming to ductility, metals are ductile, non-metals are non-ductile, metals are malleable, non-metals are non-malleable, metals are lustrous, non-metals are generally non-lustrous, but we have an exception here of iodine. Okay. Next, sonority, metals are sonorous, non-metals are non-sonorous. Density, metals have high density, they have low density. Then coming to physical state, generally metals are solid in the state, but we have an exception here of mercury. Okay. Next, coming and non-metals can be found in liquid, gas as well as in solid state. Next, coming to hardness, so metals are generally hard. Okay, but here also we have exception. Lithium, sodium, potassium are very soft metals. Okay, and here non-metals are your soft. Okay, but here also we have an exception of diamond. Okay, so diamond is a non-metal, but it is the hardest known substance in the earth. Melting and boiling point, so generally metals have high melting and boiling point, whereas non-metals have low melting point and boiling point. But exception is there, gallium and cesium, these are metals but they have very low melting point, and diamond is a non-metal but it has very high melting point. So these exceptions are very important, you should remember these exceptions. Okay. Next, coming to the chemical properties, so valence electrons are like they have 1, 2 or 3, and here they have 5, 6 or 7. Electron donors, these are electron acceptors. Electropositive, electronegative. The oxides of metals are basic and these are acidic. Corrosive, they are corrosive, they are non-corrosive. Type of ion, metals form cation, non-metals form anion, right? Reducing and oxidizing, so if metals has the tendency to lose electrons, right? They have the tendency to lose electrons, they can have the tendency to get oxidized. Okay, and if they have the tendency to be oxidized, they behave as an reducing agent. And non-metals have the tendency to accept electrons, so they get reduced. Okay, and they can behave as an oxidizing agent. Okay. Next, coming to the chemical reactions. So first one is reaction with oxygen, reaction with water, reaction with acids, then reaction with the solutions of other metals. So now I want to introduce you all towards DSAT, that is Diksha Scholastic Aptitude Test. So all of you know that after 10th it is a very important decision to choose your career. So to help you with this, we have DSAT, in which we have a 60-minute lecture first, okay, and then there is an aptitude test, and then this aptitude test will be evaluated and you will be having a one-on-one mentorship where they will be telling your strength and weakness, and based on this you can choose your career, right? So make sure to to get the best possible career, this is something we are helping you. So if you want to join this, please go to the description section, register for DSAT, link is there in the description. Okay, fine. Next, let us go to the metals. When they react with oxygen, we get metal oxides, and for example you have copper can react, and there are certain oxides which can behave both as base and an acid, right? So those type of oxides are called as amphoteric oxides, and you can see the reaction. Aluminium oxide can react with HCl, so this is it is behaving as a base here. That is reacting with a base, it will behave as an acid here. Next, non-metals can form non-metallic or acidic oxides, and for example C plus O2 give you carbon dioxide. Next, reactions with oxygen, the same thing we are continuing. So there are certain metals like sodium and potassium, they react very vigorously with the oxygen, right? So that is why they are stored under kerosene. Next, at ordinary temperature, the surfaces of magnesium, aluminium and zinc are covered with a thin layer of oxide, and this thin layer of oxide protects them from further corrosion. Next, you have iron. Iron does not react at all with oxygen, but the iron fillings can react. Similarly, copper does not burn, but the hot metal is coated with a black colored layer of copper oxide. Okay. Silver and gold are very less reactive, so they do not react with oxygen. Next, coming to reaction with water, this is very important. So sodium, potassium and sodium and potassium are highly reactive and can react with cold water. So when they react with water, we get metal oxide and hydrogen gas first, and this metal oxide gets dissolved in water to give you metal hydroxide. Okay, so metal plus oxygen, metal oxide plus water is metal hydroxide. Next, we have calcium and magnesium can react with hot water, right? Zinc, iron and aluminium, these three reacts with the steam. And you have lead, copper, silver and gold, they are very less reactive, they do not react at all with the water. Okay. Next is reaction with dilute acids. So metals reacts with dilute acid to give you salt and hydrogen gas, but here there is an exception. So generally these metals do not react with HNO3. Okay, why? Because the HNO3 is a very good oxidizing agent. So when they react with this one, the hydrogen gas that is produced is oxidized to give you water. Okay, so we cannot find hydrogen gas if the acid is HNO3. Okay, so next one, magnesium and manganese react with very dilute HNO3 to evolve H2 gas. The reaction of the metals with oxygen, you can see, with acids, first magnesium, then aluminium, then zinc and then iron. There is something called as aquaresia here. Aquaresia is a solution of concentration HCl and concentrated HNO3 in the ratio of 3:1. Okay. Fine. Next, metal reactions with the solution of other metals. So if suppose A is there and the solution of BC is there, if A is more reactive than B, then A can displace B and we get AC plus B. Okay, so based on this we have the reactivity order. So you have potassium, sodium, that means potassium can replace these metals, sodium can replace these metals. Okay, calcium can replace these metals, aluminium can replace these metals. So based on that, this is the reactivity series of the metals. Next, reactions of metals with non-metals. So metals and non-metals react to give you ionic compound. So the certain properties, they are solid in nature, high melting point, they are soluble in water. Conduction of electricity is very important, but they can conduct electricity only in the molten state or in the aqueous state. Okay. Next, this is very important, occurrence of metals, some important terminologies. What is metallurgy? The science of metals extraction and all is called as metallurgy. Minerals is where metals are found in the form of its oxides, sulfides or carbonates. Ores are those minerals from which you can extract metal in a profitable way. And gangue particles are the impurities present in the ores. And enrichment of ore or concentration of ore, it is a process in which the impurities are removed and the ore is collected. Okay, fine. So there is some steps how to extract the metal in the purest form. So metals based on their reactivity are of three types: high reactivity, here we have medium reactivity, okay, and low reactivity. High reactivity metals are converted to pure metal by electrolysis. Medium reactivity has two, like medium reactivity can be either in the form of carbonate or sulfide. Carbonate ores undergo calcination, sulfide ores undergo roasting. Now based on this, when calcination and roasting, they are converted to oxide of metal. After that there is reduction, so it is easy to obtain metal from its oxides. So that is why carbonates are converted to oxides by the process of calcination and sulfides are converted to oxides by the process of roasting. Now calcination means where you are heating in the absence of oxygen, and roasting is where you are heating in the presence of oxygen. Now after oxide you have reduction of metals and then you have to purify it. Then metals of low reactivity, for them they generally are in the form of sulfides, then you convert them to oxides by roasting, then metal, and then you do reduction and then refining. Okay, so here you can see the order. These are the high reactive metals, these are the medium reactivity metals, and these are the low reactive metals. Okay, so we can see example for low reactive metals. Okay, you can see mercury, it is found in the form of HGS. So for the low reactivity metals, first they are converted to oxides. Okay, once they are converted to oxides, then they are heated and we get Hg and O2. Similarly, if you see copper, okay, so copper sulfide is converted to copper oxide first, then copper oxide is reduced in the presence of copper sulfide, and then we get pure copper here. Okay. Similarly, if you see medium reactivity, for them one is sulfate. If sulfide ore are present, so that is first converted to oxides, and this process is called roasting. And if it is carbonate, it is converted to oxide, and this process is called as calcination. Here you see oxygen is used, and here there is no use of oxygen. Now once we get oxide, that is reduced in the presence of carbon to give you pure metal. Clear? Next, similarly you can see example of manganese MnO2. Okay, MnO2 metal is reduced not in the form of carbon but with aluminium. Similarly, Fe2O3 is reduced in the presence of aluminium. Okay, now if you have high reactivity metals, so for them we can only produce or we can get pure metals by electrolytic reduction. Okay, we cannot use this like carbon and all to reduce them, because they have more affinity for oxygen. Okay. Okay, so next is electro refining of metal. So in electro refining, what happens, you can see you have to take the impure rod and the pure rod. Okay, so the you can see the current through the electrolyte, the pure metal from the anode dissolves into the solution. So anode is taken the pure form. Okay, so this is your pure form anode. Okay, and this is cathode, right? So now what happens here, there is oxidation, you get the pure metal and that get deposits here, and we get pure metal on the cathode side. Okay, is deposited on the cathode, the soluble impurities go into the solution. This is a way how you can refine the metals. Okay. Next, coming to corrosion and how to prevent them. So corrosion, you can know what is the meaning. It is because when it reacts with the substances present in the atmosphere, it gets corroded. Okay, so example, you can see Fe reacting with O2 and H2O is called rusting. Copper reacts with carbon dioxide and water to give you copper carbonate. Ag reacts with sulfur to give you AgS. So colors you should remember, this is black, blue and red. Okay. Prevention, you have oiling, painting and all you can do. Then you can do chrome plating, that is covering the metal with the chromium metal. Okay, anodizing you can do, alloying you can do. These are the different methods how you can prevent corrosion. Okay, so next, here are some different alloys and their metals, so you should remember. So nickel, iron and chromium will give you stainless steel. For brass, it is copper and zinc. Bronze is copper and tin. Shoulder is lead and Sn, and amalgam is mercury and metal. Any metal with mercury is called as amalgam. Okay, so yes students, that's all. So once again I will be reminding you about DSAT. So if you want to go for it, please check the registration link is there in the description section. This will really help you to choose the right career for yourself. Okay, so that's all students, and from here onwards the next revision will be continued by your Jasmine ma'am on the topic control and coordination. Okay.
Hello my cute little champions, I hope that you are doing wonderful and I hope that you are done with chemistry, not done with chemistry. I hope you are done with the revision of chemistry, and now it's time to revise control and coordination from biology. And if you are someone who is having concept related doubts, I would recommend you to watch the videos that I put yesterday and day before yesterday. One is control and coordination in plants and the other one is control and coordination in animals. So his particular video, revision video, is going to be fast. Revisions have to be quick, right? So it is going to be fast. So concept related doubts should be cleared there itself. Chalo, let's get started. First thing, why do you think we just take off our hands when we touch something hot? Because there, the temperature which is there, it is going to act like a stimulus. Stimulus as in some change in the environment which would make us do something else. For example, when there's a change in the environment, that is, I'm touching something hot. This is something change. Normally, this is not a temperature. When I'm touching something hot, this is a change that I'm going to experience. And now, because of this, I'm going to take away my hands. What is this action known as? This is known as reflex action. Okay, and the thing that is making us do this is known as stimulus. Stimulus are what? The changes in the environment to which the organism respond and react are known as stimuli or stimulus. Now, this reflex action basically anything that happens in our body, in the case of animals, it is kind of different from what is in the case of plants. In the case of animals, we have both nervous and the hormonal control. We have a brain, we have a proper neuron system, everything is there. So we are under control. But in the case of plants, do you think they have a brain? Have anyone spotted brain in the case of plants? No, children. But they have something more brainy, and that is a hormonal control. So they do have hormones with the help of which they kind of coordinate everything in their body. So this nervous system and hormonal system, or basically this hormonal system, is making the plants or animals coordinate all the actions in them. And what do you mean by coordination? Coordination, as you know, is working together the various parts of the body, okay, to produce a proper reaction of the stimulus is known as coordination. For example, there is some hot pan, and now my hand says that I won't be reacting to it. No, it cannot work like that. Everything that happens in our body has to have a coordinated, the hand is saying, the muscles over here are saying, I'll react after 1 hour. Is that okay? No. So this has to be coordinated, and this is coordinated in the case of animals with the help of this, in the case of animals with the help of just this, that is hormonal control. So first we'll go off with animals, we go off with plants, and then we'll talk about animals, okay? Now, in the case of plants, do you think the plants move, children? Do you think the plants move? I think the plants definitely move. Now, the movements can be divided into two types. One is nastic movement and the other one is tropical movements or tropic movements. Nastic movement and tropic movement are kind of different. I'll give you an example and I'll try to make you understand. When I touch a touch me not plant, it kind of closes up. So here, what is the stimulus for this touch me not plant to close? This action that is showing is a reflex action. But what made it do that? The touch. So touch becomes what? The stimulus. And in response to the touch, it is just closing. It is not moving towards me. It is not moving away from me. So over here, basically my hair is moving the slides. Over here, the direction of the response is not determined by the direction of the stimulus. The direction of the response, that is basically closing up, is not in coordination with the direction of the stimulus, that is where I am touching. This is known as nastic movements, my dear children. This is also known as non-directional movement. Okay, non-directional movement. Now, this type of movements may or may not be growth movements. Growth can be associated with it, growth cannot be associated with it as well. Now, on the other hand, when you talk about the other movement, which is tropic movement, it looks like this. Just a second. Okay, over here, there is sunflower. And if you have noticed sunflower, they move according to the sun. So if sun is here, the sunflower will move this side. If sun is this side, then sunflower will move this side. So over here, what is the stimulus for the sunflower? The sun. Basically, the light is the stimulus. What is the response? It is moving towards it. So is it directional or non-directional? Basically, the response is being followed by the direction of the stimulus as well. So these type of movements are known as tropic movements. Now, the sunflower can move according to the sun's light, or it can move opposite direction of the sun. Either way, if it is moving towards the sun's light or away from the sun's light, it is known as tropic movements. Anyways, it has some direction, it has some link between direction of the stimulus and the direction of the response. Cool. We'll get to know more about it. First, let's cover all the nastic movements and then we'll come over here. So I hope nastic movement is done. Okay, the question comes, basically they ask about, tell the difference between the action of the sensitive plant, that is Mimosa pudica, or basically this plant what do you call as touch me not plant. It is also known as Mimosa pudica, okay, and also the action of the shoots growing towards the light. So this is a nastic movement, other one is a tropic movement. So they can give you questions on the basis of that, so you should be knowing all these points over here, okay. So this is non-directional, it may or may not be growth movement. The sunflower moving towards the sun, it might be there, the chances there that it is growing towards the sun as well. So there could be a growth movement as well there, okay. Now, in nastic movements, the first one is thigmonasty. Thigmonasty means you are talking about the stimulus. Over here, thigmo means what, children? Touch. Thigmo means touch. So touch is the stimulus. Thigmonastic movements and responses to touch or physical contact. So this is an example of thigmonastic movement. Next thing, photonasty, where light is the stimulus. So daisy flowers, if you have seen daisy flowers, when the sun is there, it will kind of open up, and the sun is not there, it will close. So basically this is also a nastic movement, and the stimulus is what? Light over here. So photonastic movements are responses to light. It is not going towards the sunlight, nothing like that, okay, but basically it's opening up, blooming and closing. That is something, okay. Now next thing, thermonasty, where temperature. Thermo means temperature is the stimulus, my dear children. So thermonastic movements are responses to temperature. So this is a plant which is known as rhododendron. So this opens up when the temperature is kind of high. When the temperature is kind of low, it droops down. It droops down. Now it has nothing to do with the direction of the temperature. There is no direction of the temperatures, things like that over here anyways. Okay. But it is anyway reacting to it. So this response that you see over here is known as thermonastic movement. Anyways, they are moving. So this is example of thermonastic movement. Cool. Now going ahead with this, with the tropic movements. Tropical movements, they are of different types: phototropism, geotropism, chemotropism, hydrotropism, thigmotropism. Photo means you're talking about light. Light is the stimulus. Geo means you're going to talk about gravity. Gravity is the stimulus. Chemo means chemicals are the stimulus. Hydro means water is the stimulus. And thigmo means touch is the stimulus. All these movements that you see over here, very important. In your NCERT textbook, in nastic movements, there is only one nastic movement given, that is Mimosa pudica. Okay, touch me not plant. The touch me not plant. And I'll tell you one more thing. Why does the touch me not plant droop like this? Why does the touch me not plant droop like this? Because at the base of the touch me not plant's leaf, there is some structure which is known as pulvinus. It is known as pulvinus, and because of some hormonal action, the pulvinus loses water. The pulvinus loses water, that's when it closes up. Okay, cool. So pulvinus, please remember it, because of the hormonal action, certain ion channels and everything gets opened up, and hence it loses water at the end, which is why it droops down. Later water fills back and then it opens up again. Okay, yes. So tropic movements, basically I can write tropic movements, that will be more correct. Here the direction of the response is determined by the direction of the stimulus. So it can be away from the direction of the stimulus or towards it. But anyways, it is determined by the direction of the stimulus. For example, sun is coming from here. So it will grow either towards that side or away from it. It won't be going this side and that side. No, nothing like that would be happening. Now it is a directional movement for sure. Okay, now it includes growth movement. It will be including growth movement as well. Cool. Chalo, first thing, phototropism. What do you mean by phototropism? Here light is a stimulus. So it is a directional movement of the plant in response to what, children? In response to light. Now there is positive and there is negative phototropism. Positive, as you can see over here, the shoot of the plant, okay, the stem, the leaves and everything. The shoot of the plant, if you have seen, always it grows towards the sun. Whereas when you talk about roots, they grow away from the sun. So the shoot is showing what? Positive phototropism. The root is showing what? Negative phototropism. So this is an example. Okay. Now when we talk about the next, I'll come to that. Okay. The next is geotropism. Geo means here it is a directional movement of plant part in response to gravity. Gravity is the stimulus. So here ulta is happening. Basically there is shoot and there is root. Where is gravity towards? Gravity is towards downwards, right? So roots are also growing towards downwards. So can I say roots show positive geotropism, whereas shoot, which is growing away from it, show what? Negative geotropism. So here is a picture, and this is a very famous picture which usually comes in your boards as well. They will ask you, choose the picture which shows correct type of tropical movements. So this is the one that shows correct type of tropical movements. The roots are growing downwards and the shoot is going upwards. Why? Because it is showing positive phototropism. And also this shoot is showing negative geotropism. Similarly with the root, they are showing negative phototropism but positive geotropism. So this is the entirely correct way. So they can give you where roots are going up and the shoot is going down. This is all thing is wrong, my dear children. Just rely on this particular diagram. Now the phototropism, how do you think the plants are moving towards the shoot? Basically over here you saw the shoot is moving towards the light. Why do you think this happens? Because of a very important hormone which is known as what? Auxin. So auxin in the case of plant, this diagram you have to remember, very important diagram. You may ask to draw also. Okay, so over here if you see, this is the root, this is the shoot tip. This is the tip of the shoot, topmost position. And over here the auxin hormone is distributed uniformly. Everywhere it is the same. Now what happens, for suppose the sun is this side. Okay, suppose the sun is this particular side of the plant. What happens? The auxin would be moving towards the other side. The auxin will be moving towards the other side. Now when the auxin moves towards the other side, its concentration is very much over this side. And what happens? For example, the normal cell looks like this. If there is too much amount of auxin over here, the cell will transform to look like this. Why? Because auxin is a hormone that helps in something that is known as cell elongation. Auxin helps in cell elongation. Now, if there is too much amount of auxin here, there will be cell elongation over here. Now, here the cells are elongated, but here the cells are small. On one side, the cells are kind of long, and the other side, it is kind of small. So, obviously what happens, it will tilt towards this side. And now, this side also would be receiving enough amount of sunlight. So, phototropism of feed auxin is very much important. Auxin plays a major role in all the tropical movements. Chalo, next, chemotropism. Chemotropism here, chemo means you're talking about chemicals. It is a directional movement of plant part in response to chemicals. There is positive and negative. Positive chemotropism is when pollen tube formation occurs. So, you might have seen the pollen grain comes and falls over there and then forms a pollen tube. Inside the pollen grain, what is there? Male gamete is there. Where is the female gamete? Female gamete is there in the ovule. So, it has to, the pollen tube has to come over here until the ovule. So, for that, what happens? The ovule releases certain chemicals, my dear children. The ovule releases certain chemicals. And now, if the chemicals are way too much on one side, what will happen? The pollen tube will be moving towards it. And since it is moving towards the chemicals, can I say that it is positive chemotropism? Yes. So, pollen tube formation is an example of positive chemotropism. Now, on the other hand, think that there is a ground, okay. In the ground, there is too much amount of toxic chemical materials over here in the soil. The roots which are growing, will it grow towards this particular thing? No, it will try to grow away from this. So, this is an example of negative chemotropism. It is moving away from the chemical compounds. Works? Easy? Now, yes, so you can go and read it, okay, if you want. Now comes hydrotropism, where hydrotropism means you're talking about water. So it is a directional movement in the case of plant in response to what, children? Water source. Positive hydrotropism is when it moves towards water. For example, there is a soil. Okay, this is a moist soil. This is moist soil, my dear children. So water is uniformly distributed everywhere. So roots will grow on all the sides. But when it take dry soil, and if you have water on one particular side, the roots would be growing towards the water. So this is an example of positive hydrotropism. Whereas, on the other hand, if you want to show negative hydrotropism, so roots are scared of water when there is flooding condition. If you have seen, if we water too much, the roots try to, because the soil would not be having space to exchange the gases, and roots also need exchange of gases, right? So if there is no too much gas, they won't be able to survive. So they try to move away from the waterlogged areas. So that is an example of negative hydrotropism. Usually positive hydrotropism is asked. So please put a specific, attention to this particular thing. You might be asked to show, demonstrate an experiment on hydrotropism. How can you do that? Just give me a second, okay? Where is it? Yes, this is the experiment where what you can do is, you can draw this. Okay, you can draw this. Make a, potty sort of thing. Pot sort of thing, oh my god. I'm so sorry, okay. Make pot sort of thing, and then over here, okay, over here you can put a glass, a clay one, okay, not a glass jar, a clay pot over here towards this particular side. Okay, a clay pot, and then put water. What happens? In the clay pot, the water would be able to seep out slowly, and hence the roots would be growing towards that side. So this is a way you can explain it. So design an experiment. How you do that? Plant a seedling in a vessel containing soil. Adjacent to the seedling, put a porous pot containing water, or you can just write clay pot. Leave it like that for few days, and then what will you see? Observation. Write like this. This is the procedure. This is the observation. What will you see? The roots of the seedlings is moving towards the source of water, and then you have to write the inference. What do you understand from this? What is the result of this? It confirms that plants show hydrotrophism as the roots bend towards the porous pot of the water. So you are confirming it as well. So this is an experiment that you have to do for hydrotropism. Now this is a very important question. Please go through it. Okay. Okay, after hydrotropism comes thigmotropism, which is again something important. So hydrotropism, phototropism, thigmotropism are the most important tropic movements. Okay, now this is a directional movement in response to touch stimulus. So over here you see a tendril moving towards the support. This is moving towards the support. This support is acting, when it touches, basically it is acting as a positive response, and then it is growing towards it. Sometimes it touches and grows away from it. For example, when it touches, it finds that thorns are there, it will move away from it. So if it is going towards, then it is known as positive thigmotropism, where the tendril is helping in the growth of plants with the help of the support. Negative thigmotropism, tendrils moving away from unsuitable support. Okay, here also you have auxin's role. Similarly, just like how you drew over here, instead of sun, you have to make support over here. Instead of sun, you have to make support over here. What happens when you draw support over here? The auxin will move towards one side. Okay, the auxin basically moves towards one side. The same thing happens. It will elongate towards one side, and now slowly it can coil around. It would be able to coil around the support because of the same thing. So same diagram you can use, just that you have to replace the sun with a support over here near the plant. Okay. Cool. Now, welcome to the world of plant hormones. So we are going to deal with plant hormones. Just before that, let me tie my hair. So how many plant hormones do you know? How many plant hormones do you know? I know basically at least 5 of them. Okay, in that 3 of them are growth promoting hormones and 2 of them basically are growth inhibiting hormones. What do you mean by growth promoting hormones? That means it will help in the growth of the plant. Okay, and the growth inhibitors are the ones that does not allow the growth of the plants. Why do you think there will be hormones that does not allow the growth of the plants? Basically, for example, you think there's an unsuitable condition, okay, where the plant cannot grow. At this point of time, if the seedling, it hatches or basically germinates and it grows, it won't be getting enough amount of nutrition later on. So that is the problem. At this point of time, the seed should be dormant. It should not germinate. So here comes the role of growth inhibitors. They would say, wait for some time. We'll grow later on. So they are also good people. So do not think that they are bad. Okay. So how many of them do you have, children? Okay. You have auxin, you have cytokinin, you have gibberellin, you have abscisic acid, and you have ethylene. These 3, auxin, cytokinin, gibberellin, these 3 are growth promoters. And we have 2 of them which are acting as growth inhibitors. Okay, let's see about each of them. Right, auxin helps in cell elongation. We already studied about that. Auxin helps in all the different type of tropical movements. We also studied about that. Now, one very important thing, auxin is usually present at the tips of the plant. Okay, and it does not allow the formation of what? Lateral branches. The formation of lateral branches. So I will say no lateral growth. Because of what? Auxin. If auxin is not present at the tip, probably it would help in the growth of the plant laterally as well, towards sideways as well. That thing you have to remember. Second hormone is gibberellin, children. G for gibberellin, G for germination. So you might have seen your parents and all, when they put pea and all in the water, slowly it starts germinating. Usually it stays in the dormant state, it does not germinate, but when it has water and everything, whenever the situation are favorable, they start germinating. So this is because of gibberellin. There's a hormone that will allow it to germinate. So it breaks the seed dormancy and stimulates the seed germination. Apart from that, it also helps in growth, okay, also helps in cell growth just like auxin. Okay, so gibberellin, auxin, both of them, they are growth promoters. There is one more hormone, that is cytokinin. Cyto means cell and kinin means division. So basically, if you have this cell, it will divide into 2. Again, it will divide into 2. Whenever you want to have cell division, whenever you want to increase the number of cells at that point of time, you need what? You need cytokinin. So cytokinin stimulates the cell division, promoting overall plant growth. Also, it helps in leaf senescence. That means they delay the aging and the death of the leaves. Okay, it kind of inhibits leaf senescence. So do not want the leaf to age and probably die. So you need a lot of cytokinin there. Cytokinin's major function is what? Cell division. And whenever you're talking about cell division, cell divides, increases space. So basically you're talking about the growth of the plant as well. So it is helping in the growth of the plant. So 3 hormones are there which are growth promoters. Now you have 2 of them which are growth inhibitors. One of them is abscisic acid. A child of mine, okay, a student of mine, not child of mine, I'm not that age. So anyways, he called it Abba. So whenever you are stressed, okay, you call God, right? Similarly over here also, whenever the plant is stressed, abscisic acid comes to save this particular plant. So for example, a seed is there. Okay, it does not have any situation to germinate properly. Okay, it does not have water, a lot of things are there. If it germinates, it will probably die later on. So to prevent germination, you need to actually have the seeds to stay in a dormant state. So that is done by abscisic acid. Abscisic acid induces and maintains seed dormancy, just opposite to gibberellin. Okay, it is also released in response to stress. Okay, so whenever there is stress, salt stress, temperature stress, any point of time, this particular abscisic acid is being released. It also helps in drought tolerance. So when water is not there at that point of time, it makes sure that the stomatal pores are closed so that water won't be lost. So it helps in drought tolerance as well. So this is a growth inhibitor, my dear children. Abscisic acid, but it is a good thing, but still it's a growth inhibitor. Now ethylene is majorly used for ripening of the fruit. So if you have kept a ripened banana in between unripe banana, the other ones also become ripened. Why? Because ethylene is being released, and ethylene is being released in the form of gas, my dear children. It is released in the form of gas. So ethylene accelerates the ripening of fruits by promoting breakdown of cell walls and chlorophyll degradation. So all the things that was done previously by cytokinin and everything, it is the opposite of it is done by the ethylene. It will say the leaf to undergo senescence. It will say the leaf to fall down. Okay, it will say the leaf to get aged. So this is the function of what? Ethylene. Okay, cool. So ethylene, abscisic acid, growth inhibitors, rest all of them growth promoters. Now questions from NCERT: how is the movement of leaves of sensitive plant different from the movement of shoot towards the light? So we are talking about nastic movement and tropic movements, my dear children. Here is the thing I have already explained in the conceptual video. You can watch it. What are plant hormones? Plant hormones are also known as phytohormones, P-H-Y-T-O, phytohormones, and then you have to say that they are chemicals which are released in one part of the plant and then transfers to different part of the plant wherever it is needed. Okay, now time for, so how do auxins promote the growth of tendril around the support? The same thing that I explained, it moves that side, causes cell elongation. Uneven cell elongation would be making it coil around. So this is the answer. Write in points, underline things. Design experiment, again this we already discussed. Okay, you should be knowing about that. How does phototropism occur in plant? The same thing that I was saying over here. In the case of this, you're talking about thigmotropism, just replace it by light, okay, light source, that is sun, and then you can explain the answer. Say that auxins move that side, and auxin is a growth promoting hormone. It will lead to cell elongation. Uneven cell elongation would lead to what? Basically bending of the plant, and hence the thing happens. Now one very important thing, if you are someone who is very much confused about what you should be choosing after your 10th standard, here we are with Diksha Scholastic Aptitude Test. Definitely take it up. It's really useful for you. The link to it is provided in the description box. And with this, we are completing the control and coordination in plants. Now we have to revise what? Control and coordination in animals, my dear children. So animals, basically like us, we come under complex animals category. And for us, the cells, the tissues, the organ system, everything has to be managed, and it cannot be solely done by the endocrine system. That means it cannot be just done by the hormones. In plants it was done by hormones, but in the case of us, it has to be done both by our endocrine system. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, it has to be done both by the endocrine system as well as the nervous system. Okay, very much important. Now over here, the nervous system has two major parts. One is the central nervous system, and the other one is what? Peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system means it is the center of everything. It will handle each and everything. What comes a part of central nervous system? Your brain and the spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord is the part of the central nervous system. Now whatever nerves arises from the brains, you call them cranial nerves. Whatever nerves arises from the spinal cord, you call them spinal nerves. So all these nerves which are going to move around our body to different areas, they come under peripheral nervous system. So they carry impulses to and from the CNS, that is brain and the spinal cord. How many cranial nerves do you have? You have 12 pair of cranial nerve. How many spinal nerves do you have? You have 31 pair of spinal nerves. So you have central nervous system with brain and spinal cord. You have peripheral nervous system as well. Cool. So nerves that is arising from your brain, you call them cranial nerves. Nerves that arise from your spinal cord, you call them spinal nerves. 31 of them are there, 21 of them are over here. Cool. Now, what is the basic unit of your nervous system? The basic unit of a nervous system is a cell, and that cell's name is neuron. What do you call it? Neuron. So neuron is just like another cell, but what happens is that this is the cytoplasm of other cell, and this is the nucleus of the other cell, right? So basically, the cytoplasm, they kind of make extension outwards. They kind of make extensions outwards, and these extensions which you see outwards are known as dendrites, my dear children. What do you call them? Dendrites. Over here, this is the area where you have the nucleus and everything. What do you call them? You call it cell body, or you call it soma, or you call it cyton. And one such extension goes until here. What do you call this extension as? You call it as axon. Okay, so you have dendrite, you have cell body, and then long extension is axon. Axon also have different terminals. You call them axon terminals. What do you call it? Axon terminals. Now axon terminals at the end, they will be having certain knob-like structures like this. What do you call them? You call them synaptic knob. You call them synaptic knob. Inside the synaptic knob, what is there? There are certain chemicals which are stored. What do you call these chemicals? Neurotransmitters. What do you call these chemicals as? Neurotransmitters. These chemicals are kind of very much important. Now these neurotransmitters would be released from here and goes to the next neuron. And where does it go and attaches to the next neuron? Dendrites, no, it will have receptors over here. There this neurotransmitter will come and attach and now initiate a signal just like this. So you have dendrite, you have cell body, you have axon terminals, you have synaptic knob. Inside the synaptic knob, you have neurotransmitters which are being released between the neurons. What do you call that space between the neurons? You call it as synapse or synapse. Okay, and then you have another dendrite on the receptors. The neurotransmitters comes and attaches. So this is the basic unit of the nervous system and it is known as a neuron. Now neuron, as I said, it will send the signal. What do you call the signal as? You call it as an electric impulse. So also known as an action potential. It is a brief rapid change in the electrical potential across the cell membranes of a neuron due to movement of ions. So what happens, my dear children, is that when the neurotransmitters comes and attaches over here, no, at this particular point of time, there will be so many ion channels which will get opened up. There will be so many ion channels which will be opening up. And now the ion channels would let all the ions inside. So initially, if the potential difference was minus 70 millivolts, this will probably change. This thing will probably change if so many positive ions are getting inside. This changes, okay, when it is changed to a level, we say that the other ion channels also open up, and in this way the electrical impulse is being carried. So because this neurotransmitter is coming and attaching, it will open up so many ion channels, ions will get inside, it will disturb the potential difference across the membrane, and what will happen, if it is disturbing way too much, it will send a signal throughout. Okay, and that's how things work. So this is known as electrical impulse, my dear children. So I'll read it once more. Electrical impulse, also known as action potential, is a brief and rapid change in the electrical potential across the cell membrane of a neuron due to movement of what, children? Ions. Okay, now you have structures. Dendrites have what? Dendrites that you see over here, they are receptor sites for neurotransmitters, allowing them to receive and transmit signals to the cell body. So from the dendrites, always remember the question comes, it goes to the cell body. From the cell, it does not directly go to the axon, it has to go to the cell body. Now it has reached the cell body. Okay, cell body is there for receiving the signal from the dendrites and for transmitting them to the next place, that is what? Axon, in the form of action potential, or what do you call it as? Nerve impulse. Okay, if the signals are kind of really strong, that means there's a huge change in potential difference, that's when it happens. Otherwise it just get diluted there only. Cool. Now also remember, the neurons, they do not have centrioles. This is an organelle which is not found in neurons, and centriole is there for cell division. So if centriole is not there, it won't be basically dividing. So neurons, you have fixed number of them, it does not divide, okay, or increase its number, which is why we tend to forget things when we are going old. Now we have axon, which is a long cell-like thing that you have. They carry the electrical impulses away from the cell body to the axon terminals, causing the release of neurotransmitters contained in the presynaptic knobs of the axon terminals. Presynaptic as in before the synapse. Before the two neurons, you have synapse, right, in between them. Before that, the synaptic knob which is there, it is known as presynaptic knob. That's all. So this is a synapse, this is a neuron, this is another neuron. The space between them is known as synapse. In between this thing is known as presynaptic knob. It will release neurotransmitters which goes and attach to the next one. Okay. Now what are neurotransmitters? They are the chemical messengers that transmit signals between the neurons to other neurons. Now from this neuron, it can go to next neuron. Okay, it can go to next neuron, my dear children, or it can go to a muscle cell, or probably it can go to a gland as well. Either way. Okay, remember that. Now, okay, now we are here with something very important that is known as a reflex action. Reflex action means what? Basically, it's a sudden response to what? A stimulus. It's a sudden response to a stimulus. It is not something that I can probably control. Okay, so reflex action, also known as simply as reflex, is an automatic and rapid response to a stimulus without even the will of an animal. It's not under my will. Okay, if it is under my will, I will call it cranial reflex action because it involves my brain. But over here in normal reflex action, your brain is not completely involved. The major involvement is done by your spinal cord. Okay, in CNS you have two parts, right? Brain and spinal cord. So spinal cord guy plays a very important role over here. Now, reflex arc is basically what? Reflex arc is the nerve pathway involved in a reflex action. That is, for example, I touch something. So me touching something, here my receptors are active. Now this receptors will send signals throughout go to my spinal cord. From there will be another signal that will tell my muscle cells to move away my hand. So this pathway that the whole reflex action takes, the nerve pathway that it takes, it's known as reflex arc. And what all are involved over here? You see this. The first is sensory receptors. The first thing that you would be having is what? Sensory receptors. Please remember it, it's very important. After the sensory receptors, you see this neuron is activated. What is this neuron? This is known as sensory neuron, or it is also known as efferent. A as in come, okay. So you have sensory neuron or you have efferent neuron. It sends a signal to the spinal cord. This is the spinal cord. Inside the spinal cord, you have a neuron which is known as relay neuron, or you call it motor neuron. What do you call it? Relay, or you call it motor. Now after that, you will be having another neuron which is over here. What do you call this? You call this motor neuron, or you call this efferent neuron. So E stands for exit. So this is going to exit the CNS, that is the spinal cord, and it is going to move to the next part, that is the effector organ, which is a muscle over here. And now it will make the muscle cells contract, which is why you move away your hand. So your signal should be involving all this thing: sensory receptor, sensory neuron, relay neuron, or you call it not motor neuron. I am wrong here. It is known as interneuron. It is known as interneuron, and then you have motor neuron, and then you have effector organ. Cool? Works? Now over here you have different types of receptors. First thing, very important thing, you have different types of receptors, sensory receptors, okay. Mechanoreceptors senses what? The mechanical stimuli such as pressure, touch and vibration, etc. Thermoreceptors, it detects the temperature. Gustatory receptors, it will detect what? Taste. Olfactory will detect smell. Phonoreceptors will detect sound. So which is there in our tongue? For the one that detects the taste. And what is that? Gustatory. How do you remember? I remembered gustatory. It is not gustatory, but I remember it like that. Do not go and write it like that, okay. So gustatory receptors is there in our tongue, and olfactory, oil, you can remember like oil, it is there in our nose. So gustatory and olfactory are very much important thing, and their link is there in our brain also. So if it comes, just understand, then the link of it is there in our brain also. So somehow you say the receptors are there in your brain. So these receptors are the one that you can give as an example. Now this is the thing that I already said: sensory neuron, interneuron, and then you have motor neuron. Now steps involved: sensory neuron sends electrical impulses to relay neuron, which is located in the spinal cord of the CNS. Relay neurons connect sensory neurons to motor neurons. Motor neurons send signals to effector. Effector produces a response such as contraction of a muscle. Okay. Now as I said, it can be a muscle cell at the end, it can be a gland cell at the end, whatever it can be there. Is the signal sent to the brain? Is the signal sent to the brain? Yes. Signal is sent to the brain. That's why we remember the situations that have happened before. Somehow we remember things that have happened, but in a reflex action we do not say brain is directly involved, because if brain is involved, it will involve thinking, and if you think, probably it will not let you survive. So if you think and take away your hands, that is a problem. You might not survive, you might burn your hand. So basically it has to be sudden. So at that point of time, you have a direct involvement of spinal cord instead of your brain. Brain definitely receives a signal, but yeah. And one more thing given in your NCERT, your gustatory and olfactory receptors, you need both of them to have the good taste of the food. Why? Because whenever we chew food, okay, what happens is that the gustatory receptors is able to taste it and everything. But whenever we chew food, the volatile component, the gaseous components goes to our nose, and that's how we get the smell of it as well. Okay, and when both of them come together, we feel the food's taste. And what is the significance or the importance of reflex action, children? It is helping in initiating an immediate response. Whenever I need an immediate response, I should be having a reflex action. Second thing, it will increase my survival. Suppose I do not have a reflex action, I will put down my hand over there on the hot pan itself and end up burning it, or probably burning of myself. So this is a survival strategy. This is very, very, very much important. Works. Chalo. Now we have a brain also. Okay, we have a brain. Our brain have different parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain is there. This major part that you see over here, from here to here. Okay, wait. This major part that you see over here, this is your forebrain. And what is your hindbrain? Your hindbrain is this plus this. This is your hindbrain. Okay, now very little part of your brain becomes your midbrain. Okay, that is your midbrain. So you have forebrain, you have midbrain, and you have hindbrain. Okay, so now forebrain has cerebrum, thalamus and hypothalamus. Cerebrum is this particular region that you see over here. Hypothalamus and thalamus is located towards this side. Okay, now listen to me very carefully. Cerebrum, it is the largest part of our brain. Whether it be forebrain or hindbrain, midbrain, whatever you take, brains in total, your largest part is what? Cerebrum. And now if it is largest, obviously it has to do some very important works. It is involved in thinking. It is involved in logical problem solving skills. It is involved in learning languages. Everything that is more intellectual comes out to be from with the help of cerebrum. So cerebrum has two hemispheres. Okay, you can see two part of your brain is there. Okay, these are known as cerebral hemispheres. So it is the main largest thinking part of your brain. Do not get confused between cerebrum and cerebellum. Cerebellum is totally different. Cerebrum is different. Cerebrum is the largest part. Drum, you can remember that. And drums are very huge. Okay, so cerebrum is involved in thinking, problem solving and stuff like that. Thalamus, it is kind of acting as a relay station, as in the sensory neurons, everyone has to travel through it. So it is acting as a midpoint for everything. Hypothalamus, then that is very much important. Hypothalamus is responsible for all your physiological functions. For example, I am feeling thirsty, I am feeling hungry, I am feeling sleepy. This is all done with the help of hypothalamus. So hypothalamus controls all my physiological functions, my dear children. Okay, all my physiological functions are being supported by that. Very important. So which part of your brain helps in physiological functions, my dear children? It is the hypothalamus, and it is there in the forebrain. Now midbrain is there, which is again acting as a relay station in between, which transfers all the neurons and everything, all the signals. It is also there for reflex action and pain perception. I told you in the reflex action some things are being controlled by the brain also, as in some information is being stored. So basically midbrain plays a major role there. The questions do not come from the midbrain. Usually the questions come from the forebrain and the hindbrain, which is over here. So in hindbrain, the first part that you have is cerebellum, and this part is known as cerebellum. This thing that you see over here, it is known as the cerebellum. Okay, and this is known as pons, and this is known as medulla. So cerebellum, pons and medulla are the parts of your hindbrain. Cerebellum, it has two L, which is like this. So I always remember it. It helps in the posture. It helps in maintaining the correct posture. Okay, so for people who are alcoholic, who drink alcohol, they move like this. Why? Because their cerebellum is affected, which is why they do not have a proper balance. So cerebellum is important for balance, for posture and for all the motor functions. Okay, for all the motor functions. So that is why you have cerebellum. Pons is there. It acts as a major respiratory center that helps regulate the rhythm and the depth of breathing. But majorly this particular function is done by medulla oblongata. Okay, so I said pons and medulla. Medulla oblongata is very much important because it is going to coordinate all your involuntary actions, something that is not in your control. For example, vomiting, for example, sneezing, for example, coughing. Nothing is under your control. Swallowing, it is under your control, but still it is going out. Everything is happening because of medulla oblongata. And also very important thing, it is going to control both your breathing as well as cardiovascular activities. So your breathing and cardiovascular activities are being controlled by medulla oblongata. So it controls this as well. So please remember cerebellum, pons and medulla oblongata, very important. Cool. Now, what is cranium, children? Cranium means skull. Your brain has to be protected, and for that you have cranium, or it is also known as skull, my dear children. Now, apart from cranium, you also have meninges. Also, you have what? Meninges. So, your brain is covered by meninges. There are three of them: dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. Okay, so all these things are there. Apart from this, in between the cranium, in between the meninges, you have a fluid that is known as cerebrospinal fluid that is also filled there, so that friction and everything is not being taking place there. Now you have spinal cord. For spinal cord protection, what do you have, children? You have vertebral column. You have vertebral column, or what do you call it? You call it backbone as well. Okay, what is the function of the spinal cord? It helps in relaying sensory informations that allow us to perceive the environment. Apart from that, it controls the voluntary and involuntary movements. It helps in facilitating the reflex responses. So reflex action is majorly controlled by that. Now we are going to end up with the endocrine system, and with that we are completing the revision series. Okay, so what is endocrine system? Basically in endocrine system you're talking about hormones. What are hormones? Chemical messengers. They are going to send messages in the form of chemicals, my dear children. And the endocrine system includes endocrine glands. What do they include, children? Endocrine glands. And endocrine glands are known as ductless glands. What do you call them? Ductless glands. Why do you call them ductless glands? Because they are going to release all its content direct to the blood. So basically over here you have an exocrine gland which releases enzymes. and you have an endocrine gland which releases hormones. Over here, the glands which is present over here, they have a duct. They have a duct which will help in releasing the content probably outside or whatever. For example, it can be enzymes or it can be any other secretions, sebum, okay, sweat, anything can be there. That is done by exocrine gland. So over here, this is a gland that is releasing sweat. So it is directly releasing sweat outside, but it has a duct over here. In the case of an endocrine gland, for example, this is the gland. The cells of it will be directly releasing the enzymes into the bloodstream. They do not have any duct or anything like that. They are releasing directly into the bloodstream, which is why it is known as ductless glands. Please remember. Okay, and you have different type of glands over here. So in your brain itself, you have three glands: pineal glands, hypothalamus and pituitary. Hypothalamus is a part of your brain, you know, right? Similarly, it is part of an endocrine system. It is the pardada of your endocrine system. It is the one that controls everything. So hypothalamus is there, pituitary gland is there, pineal gland is there in your brain. Okay, then if you talk about your neck, over here you have thyroid gland. If you talk about your chest, in between your chest you have what? You have your thymus gland. Okay, and then if you go below, at the top of your kidney, you have a pair of glands which are known as adrenal glands. Okay, what do you call it? Adrenal glands. Just below it, you will be having pancreas. Pancreas is also a gland. Then, in the case of males, you have testes. In the case of females, we have ovaries. All of them, basically, they are glands, endocrine glands. So, what happens? There's a clear dictatorship that is happening over here. Hypothalamus says, hey pituitary, bro, do what I say. And pituitary says, do I have a choice? Because it does not have a choice. So, hypothalamus, it controls the secretion of hormones from the anterior and posterior lobes of pituitary gland. So, pituitary glands have two lobes. One is anterior side and the other one is posterior side, and both of them are responsible for releasing different things. The most important thing that is being released by pituitary gland is the growth hormone. This is a hormone that it is made here itself and been released also. So growth hormone promotes and regulates the growth. If someone is there who does not have much amount of growth hormone in them, it will lead to a disease that is known as dwarfism. This is over secretion of this particular hormone, it will lead to gigantism. This is a very important hormone. Questions are usually being asked from that. Okay. Now there is another hormone, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. This is not the thyroid hormone. This is thyroid stimulating hormone. For example, in our body, the level of thyroid is less. At this point of time, I want the thyroid gland to release more and more thyroid hormone. So this is why pituitary glands will release thyroid stimulating hormone, which will go and say thyroid gland to release more hormones. So it controls the functioning of the thyroid glands. Then we have follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, FSH and LH. It help in the formation of sperms. It helps in the formation of ovum also. So both the male gametes and female gametes are being made by that. Also it helps in the formation of male hormones and female hormones as well. Okay. Now over here, suppose hypothalamus is releasing hormones, all these hormones will be released. If it is releasing inhibiting hormones, all of them will be inhibited. So that is the role of hypothalamus. Pituitary gland, always remember TSH is important. A question came recently. TSH is released by pituitary gland. It goes and signals the thyroid gland to release more amount of thyroid. So if in our body thyroid hormone is less, at that point itself, the thyroid stimulating hormone will be more. So if you check my blood and if I find this is there, this is the case, thyroid stimulating hormone is more, that means in my body there is no normal production of thyroid hormone, which is why pituitary gland have to stress for its protection. Okay, then that is about anterior pituitary. You have posterior pituitary as well, which releases something that is known as vasopressin or diuretic hormone. What do you mean by diuretic hormone or vasopressin? Basically, in my body I have severe dehydration. I have not drank water. Now I do not want to lose more amount of water. At this point of time, the kidney have to reabsorb the water back. Otherwise, it will go through my urine. So I want to reabsorb the water back. This is done with the help of a hormone. If the hormone is there, it will allow things to get reabsorbed. So this is vasopressin. And then there is oxytocin. Oxytocin is there for uterine contraction. It's a happy hormone. It will help in injection of milk in the case of lactating mothers also, the mothers who feed their child the breast milk, right? So yes, that is there. So this is the role of posterior pituitary hormone, not very much important. Anterior is very much important, the growth hormone and TSH. Please do not forget that. Okay. Now you have pineal gland, again something not very important, but still it is helping in regulating the biological clock. So we human beings have a biological clock. That's why we say we have jet lag and things like that, because when we have to sleep, we have to sleep. When we have to get up, we have to get up. If something get disturbed, that's a problem. So who maintains this? This is a pineal gland that maintains this. Now, another very important gland, that is thyroid gland, my dear children. So thyroid gland releases two hormones. One is thyroxine and one is triiodothyronin. Thyroxine has 4 iodine molecules. Thyroxine has 4 iodine molecules, And triiodothyronine has 3 of them. Has what? Basically 3 iodine molecules. What does it do? Thyroid glands are responsible for maintaining the metabolism, the growth and the development. All of your body functions are being somehow controlled by the thyroid gland. So metabolism, as in breakdown and making of something, anything is happening with the help of your thyroid glands. Now note, for the formation of thyroid hormones, what do we need? We need iodine, and that's a very famous question. Because iodine is a major component of triiodothyronine, or basically thyroxine. I told you, right? 4 iodine is there in thyroxine, 3 iodine is there in triiodothyronine. So you need iodine. Where do you get iodine from? From iodized salt. So if there is a person who is not having enough amount of iodized salt, that means that person will be having deficiency in the formation of what? Thyroid hormone. Now in this case, if a person is not having thyroid hormone also, what particular disease is caused? Is known as goiter. Please remember. So deficiency of iodine leading to insufficient thyroid hormone production leads to goiter. So for preventing it, what do we need to take? We need to take iodized salt. Cool. Now adrenal glands. Adrenal glands means you have your kidney. Kidney is known as renal system. Adrenal, as in at the top of it, you have a pair of gland which is known as adrenal glands. Okay, in adrenal glands, the outer region is known as adrenal cortex. The inner region is known as adrenal medulla. Okay, so cortex is responsible for releasing stress hormone, for releasing sex hormones and everything. Okay, now if you talk about the inner layer, that is medulla region, it is responsible for making one very important hormone, that is 2 very important hormones, adrenaline or noradrenaline. Also you call it epinephrine or norepinephrine. Both of them are basically involved in fight and flight responses. What? Fight or flight. For example, I see a tiger in front of me. Okay, I'll either think of running away or probably fighting with it. So at this point of time, anyways, for running and for fighting with it, or basically whatever I do, I need my blood to reach everywhere, wherever it is needed, through my muscle cells. Why? Because my blood is carrying oxygen, and oxygen is required for production of energy, and we need energy for running and whatever we want. So basically at this point of time, my heart has to pump faster. So adrenaline is the one that says the heart to pump faster, so that much amount of blood is provided, and we think that we are in panicky situation. Actually our body is trying to help us. So this adrenaline, noradrenaline is helping what? Blood pressure to get increased. Your heartbeats become really fast because your blood has to reach everywhere wherever it is needed. Now it is also responsible for vasodilation and vasoconstriction. For example, this is a blood vessel that goes to the stomach, but at this point of time I want more amount of blood to reach to my muscles. So this particular blood vessel will get constricted. Will get what, children? Constricted. Whereas the other blood vessels will get dilated. Will get what? Dilated. Wherever it is needed, it has to get dilated. So vasodilation, vasoconstriction is done by adrenaline and noradrenaline as well. Cool? Works? Chalo. Next thing. Guess who? It is what? Pancreas. And pancreas is a heterocrine gland. What do you call it? Heterocrine gland. Why do you call it heterocrine? Because it is responsible for releasing enzymes. That means it is an exocrine gland, and also releases what? Hormones, which is why it is known as endocrine gland. Together when it comes, you call it heterocrine gland. What hormones, my dear children? Insulin and glucagon, very much important. Glucagon and insulin. What does insulin do? Insulin converts glucose to glycogen. What does glucagon do? Glucagon converts glycogen to glucose. So in our blood, if the level of glucose is high, we say that that person is suffering from diabetes if it goes on for so much time. Okay. So what do we need? We don't want too much amount of glucose to roam around freely. We convert it into what? Glycogen, and store it in the form of reserve energy. So whenever our body is needing it, it can be utilized. Now suppose I am starving for so many days. This fast, I am taking fast. At this point of time, my body needs enough amount of glucose and I am not having food. So this reserved energy has to be broken down back to what? Glucose. So they have opposite functions, my dear children. Insulin and glucagon, very important thing. So if the question comes that in your body is 160 mg or mg per dl of what? Basically glucose, and the normal is basically 140 or basically 120. Which hormone is not being produced? It is the insulin which is not being produced. And what is the condition? You have diabetes. Okay, and which gland is not functioning well? It is pancreas. Okay, so that is the thing. Now we have ovary and basically testis. Ovary is responsible for releasing what hormones, children? Estrogen, progesterone and everything. Estrogen, progesterone and everything. Whereas your testis is responsible for producing what? Androgens. Okay. The famous androgen was testosterone. Cool. So these are the things that you have to remember. Please remember the labelings as well. And with this, we are completing our content. Okay. So I hope you had a quick revision. And now one very important thing, if you are someone who is interested in the Diksha Scholastic Aptitude Test, please go through the link that is given in the description box. It's very, very, very important. There will be a 60 minutes concept based lecture. Then on the basis of lecture, there will be an aptitude test. And then with the aptitude test, you will be having a one-on-one counseling with the counselor also. He or she will be suggesting the best stream for you, so do not miss this opportunity. Try it out for sure. And if you think that this particular video was useful, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, that is Diksha Vedantu. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Do not be panicky. Everything is going to be alright. Bye-bye. Take care.